Salam Tana, Dana Esteli. We're going to call this the Messiahs or the Messiah Christ Groundation Lessons. The Messiah Christ Groundation Lessons. The reason for us focusing on this subject matter is that in our teaching and reasoning communication with brothers and sisters, what we find out is that most people don't don't even have a good understanding of these terminologies. And unfortunately, most people are not honest with themselves, much less with the Almighty, but they're not even honest in their own sense of what they know. They assume that they understand, and they make themselves believe that certain meanings, especially from the Bible and concerning Jesus Christ and concerning his name, concerning the mission, the purpose, the title, even what the Bible is really about, and what the Savior, Jesus Christos, Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach, is really saying. And they don't. They make themselves believe that they understand. A good example is Jesus Christ. When we say Jesus Christ, what is it that we're truly saying? Even if we were to say Ausus or Jesus Christos, or we say Yahushua HaMashiach, what are we really saying? And who is Jesus or Jesus, Yahushua? And we're speaking now more intellectually, not talking about the humanity of Jesus Christos that we know is black. You understand? We know based on the scriptures, based on the history, you understand? And based on the living descendants today, we know that Jesus Christos is a woolly-haired Ethiopian or woolly-haired black man. That's the humanity level. We've addressed that. Sometimes we've addressed that particular point ad nauseum. You understand the fact that he's black, and some don't want to accept it because they have already accepted the Gentile whitewashing. They've already accepted the brainwashing, you understand, of Gentile Christendom, you understand, or of the Antichrist. They've already accepted that. So there's not too much we can really do about that. But let's focus on this particular study, and we call this particular study the Messiahs Christ. And why we say Messiahs is that when we first find the word Christ within the usage in the New Testament, we find it in connection with Messiah, with the Messiahs or Messiah idea. And we're focusing on the scriptures, John chapter 1 verse 41, as well as John chapter 4 verse 25. So let's pull up these quotes right here, and let's deal with these two quotes. The first quote, John chapter 1 verse 41, it says that he, speaking of Andreas or Andrew, first findeth his own brother Simon, and saith to him, we have found the Messias, Messias. Now the reason for that in the Greek language is that to distinguish names, they usually put a AS or OS at the end of these names, usually to distinguish the name. So it's Messiah or Moshiach or Mashiach, but they add the AS or that S sound right there to distinguish that as a personal name, so that it would not be confused within the Greek language. That's why it says we have Christ, but in the Greek it's Christos or Christos. All right. So they said we have found the Messiahs. So when Andreas first findeth his own brother Simon, he said to him that we have found the Moshiach or the Moshiach, which is being interpreted the Christ. And this is very, very important, because here is where the idea, the Hebraic idea of Messiah, began to be interpreted through not just the language of the Greeks, but also the philosophy of the Greeks, this Christos and the Christ idea. So now we're in the Western world, and in the Western world we have this idea of Christ. Most people forget that he is the Messiah. And what does Messiah mean from a non Gentile or Goyim or heathen perspective. That's what a lot of folks are really missing that. You understand? And because they miss that, they do not fully comprehend the difference between Jesus or Yehoshua, Jesus the man, and the Moshiach or Christos, the title and the office, as well as the true Hebraic function of the Messiahs. And we're going to touch on that. But let's just connect this with John chapter 4:25, because it reads very much similar. We've went into a little bit more detail on this in another lesson, but we found it necessary to just focus on some of these areas of our study and to share with our brothers and sisters what we have found, and to help to inspire them to also study these things. So it's very interesting, these ideas and concepts that we're not given, you understand, in the whitewashed Christianity. We're not really told these things. We're told that these things are not important, studying these things, but yet the Bible teaches us to study to show ourselves approved to God as workmen that need not to be ashamed, rightly dividing or explaining the word of truth. So here in John 4:25, it says, the woman, this is the Samaritan woman, saith to him, and the him is Geeta Jesus Adonai Yehoshua, I know that the Messiah, the Moshiach cometh, which is called. Now here, the Samaritan woman from the north says that the Messiah is called, is said to be Christos, or the Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. All right, these are the two main verses of Messiah in the New Testament. And there's two verses of Messiah, only two verses in the translated King James Version of the Bible where Messiah is mentioned. And curiously enough, and this is when you're studying it from an English perspective, curiously enough, these two verses are both in Daniel chapter 9, I think it's verse 25 and 26, and we'll touch on that in the next part of this groundation on the Messiah Christ. You understand what is the meaning? You understand what is in the word and what is in the meaning of the word, to better overstand when we say that Haile Selassie I is the Messiah. He is Christ in his kingly character, from an Ethiopian Hebrew, from a Hebrew, not a Gentile, but a Hebrew perspective. But if the Gentiles are honest, they will also recognize that he is the anointed, because that's the true root meaning of Messiah as well as of Christ. So as we go into the next level of this study, we're going to now go into the Greek. You understand? We're going to go into the